Yo, what's going on guys? HyperX here. Welcome back to another video for Eastward, and today I want to talk about my Eastward experience, not my impressions. I've already done a video on that. If you guys want to know what I think about the game, then I will link that video down below. But instead, I want to talk about my experience. Basically, I just want to recount some of my favorite things that happened throughout the game, sort of tell you the story that I went through, not the story of the game, but the sort of experience that I went through and what sort of stood out to me at various points throughout the game. With that being said, because I will be touching on various different aspects all the way from the beginning to the end of the game, if you haven't played it, this video will include spoilers, so if you don't want to see that, I would highly recommend you step away. But if you guys do enjoy this, a like would be super appreciated. If you guys are new here or you've been enjoying the content lately, then consider subscribing so you don't miss our future videos. But let's get started. So the Eastward experience obviously kicks off with the amazing animated cutscene, which is obviously a big departure from the pixel art style that you'll experience for the whole game, but I really like this intro. It almost gave me old school kind of Gurren Lagann vibes from the intro, maybe because they're underground, they're sort of drilling and digging and stuff, and there's a lot of sort of parallels to be made there, but seeing the sort of vibrancy and the kind of excitement you got from the intro cutscene, and you then transition straight into the pixel art world, I felt like that sort of contrast actually worked really well. Having said that, the second you get dropped in to the game, the second you kind of start experiencing that sort of pixel art, honestly, I was blown away. And it's interesting because the very first time you jump into the world, it's not even the most exciting area. You're kind of in this dreary, grim, underground area that doesn't look that visually appealing, but regardless, the pixel art style, the characters, the world, I was just happy to be there. And also, interestingly, for the first time in ages, I spoke to everyone. When I was younger, I used to play through games, I would spend countless hours speaking to random NPCs because you got all the time in the world. These days, I'm a busy guy. Generally speaking, if you're not a quest giver, I'm not talking to you. But in this game, I just weirdly felt compelled to speak to absolutely everyone, even though half the time they don't necessarily have anything interesting to say, but I did still find that their individual dialogues were actually really interesting. Now fast forward to the very first time I had my encounter, and immediately, the second that I had the frying pan in hand, I pulled that crate back and I attacked my first enemy. I was like, yeah, this is like a top-down Zelda game, and I already know I'm going to love this experience. Fun little fact, I did actually die a little bit after this in my very first gameplay. I got killed by one of the electric slugs. You guys didn't see that in the original gameplay because editing magic, you'll never know it happened. But in the interest of transparency, then yes, it did happen. However, moving forward, that Zelda feeling was then further amplified when I got my bombs. The first time you get the bombs and use it to blow open the doorway was a really cool experience. Immediately, from that point onwards, I was like, right, I see you game, I see what you're doing, and from this point on, I then went looking for cracks in the wall, because obviously, invariably, whenever there are those, they are things that you can blow open, and they lead to treasures. Now after that, fast forward into the very first time I visited a shop, there are so many nostalgia moments that this game brings back. Like, this is a great nostalgia trip. But one of the things that I really enjoyed about this was, although the first shop you visit is technically a grocery shop, it kind of just reminded me of the old school sort of game shops, because obviously the shop sells you a game cartridge. Kind of brings back the memories of like when I was younger, that used to be the primary way I would get my video games, and kind of hanging around, sort of going to shops where you buy cartridges and stuff, was always a really cool thing. And of course, outside that, there is the arcade machine where you can play the Earthborn game. I will say, I didn't really invest much time into this. I'd be interested to hear from anybody that did. Have you completed Earthborn inside Eastward? I'm not one for turn-based games normally, so while I think the throwback is really, really cool and I like the sort of nod to what they did, I didn't really feel compelled to play the game, so I didn't really do much on that front. What I did do though, was right next to the arcade machine is always a gashapon machine, and yo, I love these things. Anytime I'm in Japan, I spend a ridiculous amount of money just wasting it on, it's not even a waste. It is a good investment in my eyes on gashapon machines. So having that in this game, having the ability to collect what is effectively Eastward's amiibos, I really like that. Now fast forward later to another shop, I'm actually really glad that I picked up the treasure radar early on, because this made finding treasure throughout the game incredibly easy, or at least it kind of made you aware of it, should I say. And again, as a result of that, I then went around looking in every corner, trying to find all the treasure. However, if we then jump forward to much later on, keep in mind, before this came out, the trailers, they did a really good job of keeping the overarching story a mystery. So while there were obviously elements where you can kind of see that Sam's got abilities, I didn't really know what to expect from the story at this point. And very soon after this was my first, interesting kind of moment. I had my first boss fight. Following that, of course, you get injured, and then Sam comes along and starts using her special abilities, and then you're already like, okay, this is interesting. But it gets crazier later. However, before that, we of course find a secret doorway in the mayor's house that leads to a boss battle. Also, I'm kicking myself because when I first got into the mayor's house, I forgot to go up the stairs. I don't even know if you can go up the stairs, but I checked the secret passageway first, which then, narratively speaking, pulled me into the story, and I couldn't go back. So if anybody did go upstairs and find out what was there, please let me know. That being said, defeated the next boss, and of course, narratively speaking, we then get kicked around, thrown on the train, and we then find our way into White Whale Bay, the next area. And this was really, really cool, because this is a very big visual departure from the first area. And one of the things that was super cool, as soon as I left the station, the very first time I left it, I was like, wait a minute. Is this going to be some crazy overworld? Because you go into this sort of zoomed out area and you're like walking around the map. Unfortunately, it's not. It's only like a really small area of the game, which is still fine. It's not like it needed to have it. But it was a cool experience, sort of like zooming out and suddenly thinking that I'm just like exploring like a bigger, more open world. Now this whole chapter was pretty cool. I mean, the new town was a stark contrast to the city that we know for the first few hours of the game. It was of course visually and colour palette wise incredibly different. And of course not long after, we then get given the gun, the Bang Bang gun, which I love the name for. That's fantastic. Although I will say early on, I was a little hesitant to use this because I spent the first part of the game using a frying pan with infinite ammo, or no ammo, and then suddenly I've got a gun, and I was like, this is cool. But I kept on worrying I was going to run out of bullets. Safe to say that wasn't really an issue, you can find that stuff easy enough. And it did of course make light work with the next boss that we fought, so it came in handy. What happens after this got even more weird. I already said that we didn't really know what to expect from the story when starting the game, and then I set foot in some weird lab, looking like something out of Death Stranding and maybe Final Fantasy VII. This was now the point in the game where I was like, I don't even know what this is anymore, but I'm here for it. But I didn't get too much time to sort of stop and take a look around because then shortly after that, we had to run from the miasma and everything was consumed. And it was at this point that you start to put some of the small pieces together. Sam seems to have no recollection of this happening, yet she is also at the center of all of this. So who exactly is Sam? Anyway, with that saga behind us, we do then make it to the coolest city in the game, which is New Dam City. This place is awesome, it's super vibrant, it's one of the best showcases of the amazing pixel art, and it reminds me of exploring Akihabara in Japan, and other places like that. We also met Alva and her assistant, someone we saw earlier on in the game, but now we have more context, and although admittedly not the whole picture, these two are going to be pretty integral to the game and the story on our adventure. This town though is where I feel like some of the best bits and greatest personality of the game shone. So many characters with their own stories, so many shops, even hints to secret locations. In fact, on my first adventure outside the town, it was then that I discovered the secret temple of sorts. One of the optional things you can do in the game, only I didn't have the item I needed, so off I went back on my merry way. Also, why is it, in every video game, flying enemies are the worst? Anyway, following on from there, I got my flamethrower, the Flame Scepter. I then encountered another creepy Death Stranding lab, so now I'm really not sure what's going on. But more importantly, with the Flame Scepter, I was now able to go back to the secret dungeon, which then allowed me to get a new ability for Sam. Following this, you then have the super cool car segment, like an Uncharted set piece, only top down and pixel. Really, really cool. Basically, having to drive this car, weave it between loads and loads of shipping crates, trying to jump over the ramps, not get hit, not get destroyed. This was a really cool segment. Now at this point, I then got a hint from a dude in a trash can that there was another secret temple, which I made my way to, only to get to the end and find I couldn't actually interact with it. I'm not entirely sure what I did wrong. If any of you guys got to this one and you worked it out, please let me know. But either way, I thought maybe I'd have to come back later, but after this, the story just kind of grabbed me, it started to roll, and it basically meant that I had no chance to revisit this area. So, I was kind of sad. Anyway, then the proverbial poop hit the fan, the miasma was coming, and things started going bad in New Dam City, so we had to peace out, and this time using William's scrap heap train. We then got stuck in a time loop, and then ended up colliding with the Monkollywood train, which is Hollywood for monkeys, and a train full of monkeys taking part in movies. I am not making this up, this really happened. And it was super cool, but again, another moment in the game where I'm like, what the hell am I playing? Not in a bad way, I'm just like, every chapter, everything we do, just something completely random and completely new. That being said, there was also a stealth section in this game, somewhat reminiscent of the maze section in Ocarina of Time. Maybe not exactly, but it kind of gave me those vibes. We then arrived in the final location, this weird town seemingly caught in its own time loop. Am I playing Deathloop at this point, or am I playing Eastward? I don't know anymore. Fast forward a little bit more, and we then meet up with the Night Legion, the original members of Earthborn, and it seems they've been expecting us. See, previously, Alva had been wounded, or maybe killed, and Izzy went on a quest to try and save her, and we're now trying to catch up to them. So we then find ourselves in the Endless Tower, and the climax of the story begins. This tower was really cool, by the way. The dungeon structure was a lot of fun, and it kind of had this weird, mystical, almost Sheikah-like temple feel to it, which I liked a lot. Lots of cool puzzles, lots of cool floating elements, and a good chance to use both yourself and Sam's abilities. I also stumbled across this secret, I assume it's the developer's house or room, nice little Easter egg, basically where they worked really hard to make this game. Shortly after this, Sam, or Evil Sam I guess, runs off with the train. At this point, I'm not entirely sure what's going on anymore, but I'm along for the ride. We then meet up with Isabel and have a pretty badass duel with her. Turns out she tried to save Alva because she wanted to protect these pods with multiple versions of her to essentially allow her to live forever, and then they decide to have a discussion and say that doesn't make sense. So we close that door, Alva tells Izzy that she's doing too much, and we then battle alongside Good Sam to fight Evil Sam and basically bring all this madness to a close. And that was my Eastward experience. Honestly, thinking back, when I first saw the game and my expectations going in, it really did blow me away. I didn't expect the story to go in the direction it did, not from the sort of pre-launch material that we'd seen. I had no idea there'd be these really weird, twisted elements to it, but I loved every moment of it. So there you have it. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Keep it locked for plenty more, and again, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss our future videos.
If you want to catch more from us at HyperX Gaming, don't forget you can catch the guys TwoSixNine and Paradise Central streaming over on Twitch weekdays, playing a variety of games. If you guys want to jump in, tune in, watch, and even join in, then make sure you check them out. The links to those are in the description box down below, and of course you can join the Discord to get involved in all of the discussions.